The goods and services tax is set to come into effect from midnight today. The government has claimed that the tax proposal is based on the idea one nation, one market.
GST सिर्फ ease of doing business नहीं है, GST way of doing business की भी एक दिशा दे रहा है.
There have been a number of protests in the state against the goods and services tax by traders who say their business has been badly hit.
GST एक अच्छा आइडिया है, मगर सरकार ने उसके इम्प्लीमेंटेशन को बिल्कुल गलत तरीके से किया और इसके कारण जीडीपी को, इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ को जबरदस्त नुकसान हुआ है.
Hi everybody, on 1st of July 2017, the Government of India made the grand announcement of the Goods and Service Tax or GST. And as soon as this announcement was made, the largest democracy in the world went through a major economic overhaul. And as usual, just like any other major policy, while on one side there was a segment of media that glorified this move, on the other side, we had people portraying it as a disaster in the making. While on one side GST was a subject of celebration, on the other side it was a subject of protest. So now that it's been 5 years since its implementation and with the elections coming up very soon, if you want to be a well-informed citizen, now would be a good time to understand the impact of GST in your life and my life. So in this economic case study, let's do a deep dive and try to understand why exactly was the GST system implemented, how did it affect the economy of India both in good ways and bad ways, and most importantly, as students of business, what are the study materials and factors that will help you understand this revolutionary economic policy of India. This video is brought to you by thinkschool's Communication Masterclass course. People, if you love the way we tell stories and if you also want to present your ideas in the most powerful manner using storytelling, come join our Communication Masterclass course. This is a 6 weeks course that is exclusively designed to take you step by step from the beginner's level all the way to a TEDx level presentation skill. These 6 weeks include special exercises and worksheets that will help you become a powerful orator. On top of that, if you have any doubts, you can directly talk to me during the bi-weekly doubt sessions and I will personally clarify all of your doubts. So if this sounds useful to you and if you want to master the art of presentation, use the link in the description and enroll for our Communication Masterclass course. To understand GST, we first have to understand the fundamental reason as to why was GST implemented in India and what were the problems in the old taxation system. So as usual, let's try to understand this using a story. Let's say a pack of juice costs 100 rupees to manufacture and they have a profit margin of 10 rupees, which means the cost of production is 110 rupees. Now under the old taxation system, the manufacturer would first add 10% of his margin, which would make it 110 rupees. Then 12% of excise duty gets added and 12.5% VAT gets added. So now this would amount to 138.6 rupees. This will be the invoiced amount to the wholesaler. Now when the wholesaler gets the juice, she would add her 10% margin on this amount of 138.6 rupees plus 12.5% VAT, which will take the price of the juice to 171.5 rupees. Now you see, the problem over here is that first the excise duty is levied and then 12.5% VAT is applied on top of the summation of base price, profit and excise duty. So here itself there is a tax on tax being paid. Secondly, when the manufacturer invoices the wholesaler at 138.6 rupees, it already includes a VAT of 12.5% plus excise duty of 12%. But now the wholesaler adds another 10% margin on this already taxed amount and then again a VAT of 12.5% is applied on it. So you see, there is a tax on tax that is being applied. This is what you call as the cascading effect of tax. And because of this, the cost of the product increases not because of the production, but because of the taxes. So after 2017, the government said, instead of having a VAT and excise duty applied in this way, let's have a single tax structure called the goods and service tax. And this is how, ladies and gentlemen, the GST system came into existence. Now the question over here is, how does this GST system change the economics of this supply chain? Well, now let's take the same pack of juice that costs 100 rupees to manufacture. And the manufacturer has a profit margin of 10%, which means the cost of production is 110 rupees. Now fruit juices are in the 12% GST category. So adding another 12% to this, which is 13.2 rupees, we have a total of 123.2 rupees. This is the amount that the manufacturer will invoice the next entity in the supply chain, who is the wholesaler. So now that the wholesaler has bought the juice at 123.2 rupees, now as per the new system, he will have to add 10% to this amount of 110 rupees and not this amount of 123.2 rupees. And since this value of 123.2 rupees already includes a tax of 13.2 rupees, he is also eligible for an input tax credit. So in the GST system, the value added by the wholesaler must be added to the basic sale price of the retailer, which is 110 rupees. So if he adds another 10% on the 110 rupees sales price, that makes the juice cost 110 plus 10%, which is 11 rupees, to 121 rupees. And now GST of 12% is added to this amount of 121 rupees, which takes the amount to 135.52 rupees. This will be the cost of the same juice in the GST system as compared to the old taxation system. So you see, there are three major benefits that GST brings to this system. First of all, you don't end up paying tax on tax on tax. Secondly, because of this, the cost of the products drops down significantly, and in this case, the cost of the same juice pack came down from 171.51 rupees to 135.52 rupees. And if you remember from our India-China video, this reduction in tax burden makes the Indian market extremely competitive. And especially with the rise of Asian economies like Vietnam, Malaysia and Bangladesh, we cannot afford to scare away foreign companies because of our tax burden. And thirdly, the input tax credit to the businesses helps them pay less tax. Now to explain this, the calculation we have done has already become very messy, so I'll quickly explain input tax credit with another simple example. You see, in the old tax system, if a consultant charges 15% service tax on services of 75,000 rupees, his output tax was 75,000 into 15%, which is 11,250 rupees. Then, if he purchased office supplies for 25,000 rupees by paying 5% VAT, which is 1,250 rupees. But back then, he had to pay this amount of 11,250 rupees of service tax without getting any deduction of 1,250 rupees of VAT, which he has already paid on the stationery. So his total tax outflow back then was 12,500 rupees. But after the GST implementation, GST on services of 75,000 rupees at 18% amounts to 13,500 rupees. But now, he could claim the subtraction of GST on the office supplies, which is 25,000 into 5%, that is 1,250 rupees. So now, his net GST liability to be paid is 12,250 rupees. So this way, the businesses can get an input tax credit by which, again, they end up paying less taxes. And apart from this, there are two more major benefits of GST. Number one is the free movement of goods for interstate trade, and number two is the curbing of black income generation. So let's quickly try to understand this using a story. Did you know one of the most ridiculous problems faced by a logistics system is the bottleneck at checkposts? And even you might have seen a long line of trucks standing right before the state checkposts, right? And the most astonishing fact is that these trucks used to spend 16% of their time at checkposts just to pay state tax or the entry tax. Which means if the truck was running for 100 hours, 16 hours of its time was spent only at checkposts. This time, by the way, is equivalent to one complete trip from Pune to Bangalore. The question is, why did these trucks stop and what do they have to do with taxes? Well, back then, instead of a single variable called GST, tax varied from state to state. In fact, there were even cities and corporation limits that had different tax structures. For example, in Maharashtra, on top of that, in the city of Pune, you also had something called the LBT or local body tax. And whenever a vehicle passed from Pune, at the checkpoint, they had to check both VAT and LBT. So if there was someone shipping goods from Chennai who did not know about paying LBT at Pune, then that truck driver would have to pay tax from his own pocket before the truck moved ahead. And this is where a lot of corruption took place, wherein people started taking under the table deals, or the truck used to waste a lot of time in just being halted. And just like Pune, there were other cities and states that had their own tax structure to cause complication in the interstate trade. But after GST came in, now you only need an e-way bill and that's it. You don't need to pay any other tax or be worried about special taxes. This is how, ladies and gentlemen, GST eased the process of the interstate trading. And lastly, the GST monitoring system prevented a ton of tax evasion. To understand this again, let's go back to our juice case study. Here we had our manufacturer, wholesaler and retailer. Now while filing taxes under GST, all the purchases with sales invoices are required to be uploaded in the GSTN website at the end of each month. And each of them are tracked through their GST number. So let's say the wholesaler doesn't pay GST and gives a fake invoice to the retailer. Now the manufacturer and retailer paid their GST on the website. So the transaction of the supply chain has entered the system, and it's clearly seen that the wholesaler with an ABC GST number has done his business with them but has not paid his taxes. So automatically, the system would state that the wholesaler is due for his GST payment. This way, the government can easily catch hold of the wholesaler using the missing link in our supply chain. And you would be delighted to know that as of December 2021, GST evasion of 40,000 crores has been detected from fake invoicing and fraud claims. This is the reason why it is considered to be one of the most revolutionary moves for the economy of India. So this is an excellent system, right? Businesses save money, consumers save money, costs go down, and the government is able to prevent malpractices. Then the question over here is, why do so many people have a problem with GST? And this is what brings me to the dark side of the GST system.
No doubt हमारे देश में लोग तंग आए हुए हैं GST से.
GST with 7 or possibly more rates. It is a mockery of GST. By definition, GST is a single tax. If you think that the country is not yet ready for a single tax, don't have it, but don't call it GST.
And this is where we have three major disadvantages. First of all, just like it saves taxes for some industries, for other industries, it actually increases the tax burden. A classic example is the gaming industry of India. In July, the group of ministers reportedly presented a report recommending that online gaming activities should be taxed at a flat 28% on the full value of consideration without making any distinction between the game of skill and the game of chance. For those who don't know, in the gaming industry, we have game of chance and games of skill. Game of chance could be anything like betting and lotteries, where the user solely wins on the basis of luck. And games of skill are games like shooting games, chess, rummy, or even fantasy sports now, wherein the skill of the player is primary in determining the result of the game. Now the catch over here is that the group of ministers proposed a 28% tax irrespective of whether that is a game of skill or a game of chance. And more importantly, this 28% is not on the platform fee but on the content entry amount itself. For example, if 12 users are playing a game for a prize pool of 1000 rupees, then every user is putting in 100 rupees from her pocket to enter the contest. So the platform collects 1200 rupees, out of which 1000 rupees is given back to the winning players, and the platform keeps 200 rupees as its own fee. So even though the platform fee is just 200 rupees, the 28% GST is proposed to be applied on this 1200 rupees of content entry amount, even if it's a game of skill. So you see, this increases the GST on the entire industry by multiple folds. And while most of us think that this is good revenue for the government, it actually brings three major disadvantages, and this applies for every other industry. The first issue is that this tax will be passed on to the players and consumers, making it uneconomical for them to play these games. And this could push the users to look for offshore online gambling and betting, whereby players don't pay anything to the government. Number two, the gaming industry has attracted $3 to $5 billion to the Indian markets. So a higher tax burden will scare away the investors who want to invest in the Indian gaming industry. Furthermore, the current legitimate gaming companies will find it very difficult to survive. And lastly, when the courts have repeatedly ruled that the games of skill are legitimate businesses, putting them on par with games of chance like lotteries and casinos, that would be incorrect. And that would completely discourage entrepreneurs and developers in the game of skill markets. So you see, GST in this case has caused a loss to a specific industry and its stakeholders. And this is a big problem. So if it's not tackled well and early, it could stifle an entire group of industries in India. And secondly, the states have a problem with GST because it rewards the consumer states and in a way harms the producer states. For example, let's say there is a packet of potato chips which are manufactured in Chennai and sold in Patna. Now here, Bihar would collect the taxes on potato chips consumed in Bihar even if they were manufactured in Tamil Nadu. So if 12 rupees IGST is collected in Bihar on potato chips, then 6 rupees goes to the consuming state as in Bihar and 6 rupees goes to the center. And from this share of the center, a certain portion of it is allocated for the producer state. If I'm not wrong, it's close to 42%. And this is very problematic because states like Tamil Nadu have made massive investments on roads, highways and ports to create an ecosystem for manufacturing to thrive. So until GST came in, they were entitled to extract a return on their investment by claiming taxes at the point of origin, as in the place where the product is being manufactured. And now this major source of income is at stake. This is the reason why the Tamil Nadu government, which operates the second largest state economy, had an objection with GST. This is the reason why the government applied cess and promised compensation to the states for their losses for the first 5 years, that is until 2022. But all thanks to the pandemic, that clearly did not work out well. Thirdly, we have a problem with penalty payments. So even if you're a responsible businessman who pays his taxes on time, even if your supplier does not pay the GST, then you are not allowed to avail the tax credit for that particular invoice. And lastly, in the GST system, there is no system to revise your filings. So even after 5 years of its implementation, there are some major problems in the system that need to be rectified. And this brings me to the most important part of the episode, and that are, as citizens of India, what are we supposed to do to keep a check on this GST system? And as students of business, what are the study materials to help you understand this GST system better? Firstly, as citizens, we need to keep a check on 3 important things. Number 1, how is GST generating revenue for the producer state as opposed to the consumer state? Because if this carries on for long and producer states incur losses, the producer states will be too reluctant to attract businesses, and the consumer states will be lavish and will spend on anything but business. And that could be a disaster for the Indian economy. For this, I'm attaching links to help you understand Tamil Nadu's side of the story and the summary of the 43rd GST Council meeting. Number 2, we need to keep an eye on how does the government bring a system to directly penalize the tax evaders instead of using the honest taxpayers as scapegoat. And lastly, we need to push the government such that the GST system decreases the burden on certain industries that are right now being taxed unfairly. Because again, that could stifle the growth of an entire group of industries. For this, I'm attaching a few documents that will help you understand these affected industries better and their side of the story as to how GST is affecting them in a bad way. So do have a look at them and let me know what you think. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button so that YouTube algorithm understands that this content is valuable enough to spread it to more people like you. And for more such business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.